What's up, everyone? So I am here today to briefly introduce a system that we probably all heard about called the Enneagram. Now, I've been studying the Enneagram for probably 2.5 to maybe 3 years, but not as in depth as I've been studying, the Myers-Briggs Jungian typology system. And if we're being totally honest, the Enneagram has been a lot more difficult for me to understand, let alone to find my own type in, because it's so deep. As in, yes, with the Myers-Briggs system, it's deep too, but the Enneagram is deep in a different sense. In my opinion, for the Myers-Briggs, it was easier for me to catch on to it because just being the type of person that I am, I'm always already looking at. It's kind of like just gave language to what I already knew. And so I was already identifying these different archetypes of people, and I was already kind of aware of the cognitive functions in my head, but I just didn't know what to call it. So then when I found vocabulary to further explain it, then I was like, oh, okay. But when you look at the Enneagram, it kind of really fillets things out in a different manner. And so today I just wanted to briefly kind of show the value of the Enneagram as well. And I wouldn't say that I'm a super expert behind it yet, even though I've been studying it for the past 2.5 to 3 years, because anybody could say they've been studying something, but how deep have you been studying it? And although I've been trying to study it on a deep level, I still wouldn't call myself as nearly as proficient in that as I am in the MBTI, but I do know a little something, and I just wanted to briefly introduce you guys to it in this episode, if you will. So some of the things that I wanted to bring up, first of all, was to just show how the Enneagram and the MBTI, I personally believe that they are tools that God has given us so that we can better understand ourselves and each other. And when you put things such as the Enneagram and the MBTI together, then you can have quite a lot of insight on people. I put down that the MBTI kind of informs us of our preferences, our natural preferences, our strengths, our desires that motivate behavior. It encourages self-acceptance and tolerance. So pretty much in a sense, your MBTI type, you're born with it. It teaches you how, what your preferences are, when it comes to sensing and intuition. Which type of sensing do you naturally have a proclivity to? Are you more of an extroverted sensor or more of an introverted sensor? You have extroverted intuition or introverted intuition. How do you make decisions in the world? So the MBTI is really showing you your natural born processes of how you perceive the world and then how you make decisions. Now with the Enneagram, I said that it helps us know how to adapt to the world, or it shows us how we adapt to the world, and it gives us the tricks, the mind habits that limit us. It kind of tells us what types of habits that we've made in our minds that limit us from being able to have psychological breakthroughs. It also informs us of the needs that motivate behavior, and it expands our limited view of ourself and world so that we can continue to have these psychological breakthroughs through these psychological blocks that we have. So then when you put them together, I would say that they both assist in underlying motivation, and it's really helpful because, say for example, if you know about the Enneagram but you don't know about the Myers-Briggs, then what you could see is that an INFP 4, most INFPs are 4s, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. They have a focus on understanding / expressing their deepest feelings for authenticity. And once again, every INFP will have this kind of proclivity because they're still FI DOMs and everything, but that's kind of what they really focus on. INFP 4s, that's pretty much their drive. They really want to understand, express their deepest feelings for authenticity. They're really looking to be very individualistic, and just overall kind of like even like romantics, if you will. But the INFP 9, although it's still an INFP and the person still has the same functions as an INFP, they prefer to keep the peace and create harmony and just live a comfortable life. They're not as into being as self-expressive, but you'll still see that they go by that internal introverted feeling, and they still have extroverted intuition as their auxiliary function. And you'll see this, but they'll be using it in a different sense. My sister, for example, for those of you who know her, or at least like, met her, whatever, she's an INFP 9, for example, and she's not nearly as, self-expressive or as individualistic as a lot of the INFPs that I know, but you can still tell that she's operating from a dominant FI, and she definitely has her extrovert intuition, but she's just using these same functions in a different way. And this is what helps her continue to be an individual. So a lot of people talk about how type can box you, but I say that looking at stuff, even like just looking at the difference between the Enneagram and the MBTI, you can see the difference between people who share the same type, such as INFPs, but then there's still a distinction. Another example could be, once again, going with the INFP 9. So if, for example, you know about Enneagram, so you know about 9s, but you don't know about MBTI, well, this could be helpful. So an INFP 9 is usually idealistic, and they're more individualistic than, your average 9, and they can be interested in possibilities and ideas. So this is all because of their FI and their NE function from the Myers-Briggs system. But then if you're looking at a type such as the ISFJ9, then they tend to be a little bit more traditional, realistic, down to earth, and congenial. They aren't necessarily like looking as much to like still be individualistic. And once again, the INFP 9 is not going to be as individualistic as the INFP 4. But they're still going to be both more individualistic than an ISFJ. A lot of types can like congregate, or like they can kind of like be, you can see patterns with certain types. But at the end of the day, I've heard and I've seen, especially from like Antonia Dodge, she's testified, and so have like a few other people, that an MBTI type could be any of the Enneagram types, even though there are patterns. So there you go for a brief intro. But now what I just wanted to get into was to describing real quickly what these 9 Enneagram types are, and then reading off a brief description for each one. So let's get started on that. So as you can see, the Enneagram has this kind of symbol, which is pretty much with having all of these arrows, and the arrows are a little bit more complex than it probably looks like. Actually, no, I think that's a pretty good example of how complex it is. But essentially, each type kind of like grows into another type. It has like a growth path, and then it has a disintegrating path, but which is pretty much where both arrows can be turning into. And that's a video for another day. But today, what I wanted to do is just describe what each of the types potential archetypes could be, and what the names of the types could be, and then read off some descriptions. The names that I'm getting from these types are from this book called What Type Am I? Discover Who You Really Are, by Renee Barron, but then also from Beatrice Chestnut's site, and I'm gonna put that in the description for those of you who want to go check it out. I believe that Beatrice Chestnut knows more about the Enneagram than anybody else that I've seen so far. And so from looking at her site, then I like the names that she's put for them. And she also has some descriptions of each of the types over there as well. I'm just going to briefly run through what each of these types are, read their descriptions for you, and hopefully that'll give you a good idea of what you could be, especially if you already like went to go take the test. And this is kind of just something to once again get the plane to be running off the runway, so you'll have an idea of where you're going. But don't let this be the definitive, oh, this is definitely me, because trust me, Enneagram is not as simple as you may think. So first on the Enneagram is called the Perfectionist / the Reformer, the 1 type. Perfectionists are motivated by the need to live the right way. This includes improving themselves, others, and the world around them. They try to avoid criticism by doing things perfectly. Ones have a strong inner critic or conscience. They live by an internal list of rules and discipline themselves to do what they should do. Healthy ones are self-disciplined, hardworking, organized, conscientious, and productive. They have high standards and moral principles. Unhealthy ones can be rigid, inflexible, controlling, self-righteous, overly serious, and hypercritical of themselves and others. Next is the 2, also known as the Befriender by Beatrice Chestnut, or the Helpers by most websites. Helpers are motivated by the need to be loved, appreciated, and needed. They take pride in their ability to make people feel special and to anticipate and fulfill other people's needs better than anyone else. They appear cheerful, self-sufficient, and confident, and are often unaware of their own needs. Healthy 2s are warm, generous, empathic, enthusiastic, and nurturing. They relate easily to people, enjoy giving to others, and are capable of unconditional love. Unhealthy 2s can be manipulative, clingy, indirect, possessive, martyr-like, and preoccupied with gaining approval. 3s. 3s are known as the performers or the achievers. Achievers are motivated by the need to be productive, efficient, admired, and successful at whatever they do. Avoiding failure is very important to them. Life is a series of tasks and goals and to be completed, and they keep pushing themselves to achieve more. They are often disconnected from their deeper feelings and lose an inner sense of themselves. Healthy 3s are energetic, charming, optimistic, confident, self-assured, and competent. They make good leaders who motivate others to live up to their potential. Unhealthy 3s can be vain, overly competitive, deceitful, superficial, narcissistic, opportunistic, and prone to putting on facades to impress people. 4s are known as the Artist by Beatrice Chestnut, or the Romantics. Romantics are motivated by the need to understand and express their deepest feelings and to discover what is authentic in themselves. They want to feel special and unique and avoid being seen as ordinary. Their attention is focused on whatever is missing, distant, and idealized. Healthy 4s are imaginative, sensitive, intuitive, creative, and compassionate. They are introspective, self-aware, and in touch with the hidden depths of human nature. Unhealthy 4s can be self-absorbed, hypersensitive, impractical, self-loathing, moody, depressed, and envious of those who seem more fulfilled than they are. 5s. Beatrice Chestnut calls them the Observers. They're known as motivated by the need to gain knowledge and to be independent and self-sufficient. They observe life from a distance, guard their privacy and space, and avoid being engulfed by others. They feel more safe and in control when thinking and analyzing than when in their feelings. They are individualistic and not influenced by social pressure or material possessions. Healthy 5s are objective, focused, calm, perceptive, insightful, and curious. They have ingenious insight. Unhealthy 5s can be intellectually arrogant, withholding, controlled, cynical, negative, standoffish, and stingy. 6. They're known as the Questioners in the book that I'm reading from, but Beatrice Chestnut calls them the Devil's Advocate, or the Contrarian, or the Observer. Questioners are motivated by the need to feel secure and in control and to have safety and predictability. Feeling a sense of belonging and finding someone trustworthy to depend on is important to a 6. 6s scan for danger and potential threat and anticipate where fear might arise. Some 6s are phobic and withdraw to protect themselves, whereas others are counterphobic and confront fearful situations head-on, even seek them out. Healthy 6s are trustworthy, responsible, alert, insightful, loyal, compassionate, and sympathetic to underdog causes. Unhealthy 6s can be hypervigilant, indecisive, defensive, testy, self-defeating, paranoid, and preoccupied with the worst-case scenarios. 7s are known as the Epicure or Adventurer by Beatrice Chestnut. And in the book I'm reading, they're also known as the Adventurers. Adventurers are motivated by the need to be happy and to stay busy by keeping their options open and constantly making plans for new experiences. They view life as a fun-filled adventure, yet they also want to contribute to the world. Boredom, suffering, painful emotions, and the everyday drudgeries of life are avoided. 7s are constant seekers of excitement. Healthy 7s are optimistic, enthusiastic, spontaneous, idealistic, curious, generous, and often multi-talented. They uplift and enliven others and are fun to be around. Unhealthy 7s can be self-centered, self-indulgent, insensitive, narcissistic, hyperactive, undisciplined, and have problems with completion and long-term commitments. Now, the 8s are known by Beatrice Chestnut as the boss or the challenger. And in the book that I'm reading, their title or archetype is the asserters. Asserters are motivated by the need to feel powerful and self-reliant and to have control over their lives. They avoid being weak, vulnerable, controlled, or being taken advantage of. Being respected for their strength is more important to them than being liked. They are earthy and lusty, and they go after whatever they want. They tend to milk enjoyment out of life. They are natural leaders who want to make an impact on the world. Healthy 8s are confident, direct, decisive, courageous, and protective of their loved ones. Unhealthy 8s can be aggressive, confrontive, domineering, self-centered, insensitive, and prone to excess. And lastly, 9s. They're known as the peacemakers or the mediators. Peacemakers are motivated by the need to keep the peace, and to create harmonious and comfortable life. They erase their own needs and priorities to accommodate others and to avoid conflict. They are disconnected from their own emotions, especially their anger. They like to merge with others and with their environment, and they gain their sense of self through these connections. Healthy 9s are adaptable, compassionate, easygoing, supportive, patient, and non-judgmental. They go with the flow. Unhealthy 9s can be indecisive, spaced out, apathetic, undisciplined, unassertive, passive-aggressive, and stubborn. So those are the descriptions of the Enneagram types, and you probably related to more than one, which is interesting because, like I said, when you're looking at the different things of the Enneagram, and this, I guess, I kind of saw this happening, but oh well, brief is relative, but I will add this. There are 3 different triads to the Enneagram. So there's the heart triad, which is made up of the 2, the 3, and the 4. The mind triad, which is made up of the 5, 6, and 7. And then there's the body triad or the anger triad, which is made up of the 8, the 9, and the 1. There's this thing called tritypes, and you can pretty much be one from each of the triads. You can relate to one from each of the triads. However, you might you'll still have one fixated type. And then lastly, there's a thing called wings. And wings are pretty much, you know, it's like an auxiliary function for those of you who know about MBTI. So a 7 can have a 6 wing, or it can have an 8 wing, but a 7 cannot have a 2 wing, you know? It just might be part of their tri-type. Or if you're also understanding, you know, the disintegrating versus the growth path thing, then you could relate to what your type is disintegrating to and what your type is growing into. But once again, now that's the more complex stuff, and I haven't memorized where all of those paths go to and how all of that looks like. Also, last thing, each of the Enneagram types, they have a variant. There's a social variant, there's a sexual variant, or also known as one-to-one variant, and then there's a self-preservation variant. And then depending on which subtype you are of that type, that could really influence how your Enneagram type comes out. And so, as you can see, this is a pretty deep system, but if you're able to really pin down what Enneatype you are, what potentially your tri-type may be, and especially which variant you are, which instinctual variant you are, then it could help a lot, especially in addition to knowing your MBTI type. And then imagine if you could know other people's Enneatypes, their instinctual variants and their MBTI types. That'll just really help with our communication with each other and better understanding each other and ourselves. So yeah, that's my brief intro to the Enneagram. For those of you who are Enneagram experts, please drop comments and help further elaborate on things. And for those of you who may be wondering what Enneatype I am, or for those of you who feel like you probably already know, I would love to see what you would guess. I actually got profiled twice, if we're being honest. I was profiled by Kat, the ENFJ who featured in my How to Know if an ENFJ Likes You video in Twitter DMs. And then I was also profiled by my ENTP friend Rachel, who's in my profiler training class with Personality Hacker, and she's certified in the Enneagram. And she profiled me over 2 hours on video chat. And I didn't tell her anything about what Kat had told me until the end of the profiling session, so that I could see the truth behind what type I really am. And so once again, if you think that you know what type I am, if you have guesses or whatever, I'm planning to post a video explaining my Enneagram type, and it's gonna have clips of my profiling session and also some screenshots from the session that I had with Kat, and just me explaining my Enneagram type in general. However, that might take maybe another week or two to like kind of like really make the video really good. But I guess that gives you guys some time to, like, you know, speculate on it if you're that interested. No pressure. Yeah, I think that is about all. Make sure to drop your questions. And if I can't answer them, then refer to one of the other people in the comments who hopefully will be able to answer them. Feel free to go follow Kat. Her name is Kat Passionate on Twitter, and she'll be happy to answer a lot of your Enneagram questions. She's also already launching her Enneagram business. If anything, I'm gonna put that link in the description for those of you who want to be typed/profiled by her. And I'll be explaining more about Rachel, the ENTP who profiled me, and her business in the next video as well. I think that's all, and sorry this isn't as brief as probably you would have expected, but then again, you probably expected it since you know me, and brief is indeed relative. Done.